Hi, it's Esports Storyteller, and today we'll talk about the most flaming guy that ever played StarCraft 2. That's of course Idra. I already did a video about him covering his whole story from being a really great player to eventually becoming infamous for his toxic behavior. But I kinda realized that I didn't really get in depth with the funniest part of Idra's story, the rivalries he had with other players, and there were a lot of them actually. So today we'll talk about his most controversial competition moments with other great players. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out another Idra content on the channel or any S2 related stuff I have if you're interested. Let's go. Even if you're aware about Idra and his splendid moments,
I'll also be running lots of commercials starting with because I like money. I have no idea what he's going to do, but it's going to be bad. This guy does really dumb shit sometimes. He did a stupid build. It's fucking frustrating playing against people who don't know how to play. He's just awful. Fucking hell, where those come from. That was silly. You're all fuckers.
let's still talk about some things that are crucial for you to understand why he got into so many conflicts and why people were actually provoking him all the time. The thing is, Idra never loved or even enjoyed StarCraft 2.
I don't particularly enjoy the game, but I really liked beating people, and now that's just, well, I'm not winning nearly as much, which is part of the reason it's less fun. But the competition itself just is not as interesting to me or challenging to me.
Greg Fields was a well-established and skillful player in Brood War, it's the first part of StarCraft, and do you know what was the best thing about that game? It had a good balance after years of patching, and you could reliably play standard macro build order and still achieve good results, even if you were quite predictable. StarCraft 2 was a different kind of beast. Back in the old days, the game had a lot more cheesy tactics and gimmicks, and sometimes you had to rely on luck. Or you could try to predict what your opponent is doing, which was rather hard to do because scouting was either expensive or simply denied, at least was the problem for the Zerg race.
Zerg cannot scout. Marines can prevent Overlord scouting if you are at all careful about it, and it's not a huge investment. You just need 2 or 3 Marines on the perimeter. And wall-ins block any kind of ground scouting. Zerglings, drones can't get in.
Well, let's say a Banshee comes out or something like that, or like the 2 racks of Marine. Once they've gone down that path, I honestly think that the Terran is highly limited upon that reveal occurring. So you can actually
Highly limited, but if you have to respond after the attack is on the way, you die.
Unlike many other players, Idra wasn't even versatile. He was mechanically better than most American and European players of that time, but his playstyle revolved only around big economy and defensive counterattacks, and this is what he did almost in every match he played. Thinking that perhaps his main strength in the late game, Idra would always try to drag the game as long as he could to finally unleash his power and show his insane Brood War skills.
Release the Kraken!
But other players soon figured it out and did their best to deny him this pleasure. Subsequently, Idra didn't respect any gimmicks and risks and cheeses and all-ins, and his whole perception of StarCraft 2 was as a lackluster game that promotes stupid playstyles and needs balance changes.
He's French-Canadian, so he's going to do fast expand into stupid zealot timing into something else guy. And he actually fucked up and didn't see the hatchery, so I'm in really big advantage right now. Assuming he reacts intelligently. It's not something you should assume with TT1.
According to his own words, Wings of Liberty pales in comparison to Brood War, and from the very first months, Idra was constantly irritated by the state of the game that led to his in-game rants and funny moments.
This guy just fucking out, man. See, this is the problem with StarCraft 2. Like, people like this can just do builds like this and have the chance.
So let's get to his rivalries. The first pain in the ass was Cruncher, a Canadian Protoss player from Team Complexity. Cruncher, as described by Idra, was an abusive, cheesy Protoss player who could only play brain-dead build orders on ladder. Obviously, Idra despised Cruncher for his playstyle, and the Canadian player actually knew that. It was just another motivation for him to beat Idra and receive the honorable Idra Rage.
Cruncher was on the elevator, and he said hi to you.
Yeah, I didn't know who it was. This random fat guy said, "Hi, Idra." And I said hi.
They first met at Justin TV Invitational 2, where Idra won with a 2-1 score. There wasn't anything particularly funny, but their next encounter was a lot more exciting. It was during TSL 2011, a premier tournament that introduced a lot of great players. Idra faced Cruncher very early in the tournament, and he claimed it's gonna be pretty much a walkover for him. And little did he know about the strategies Cruncher prepared. The Canadian player was also aware that Idra is a predictable player and he often plays the same strategies he already used in the previous tournament matches. The first game was a straight up macro, the stage where Idra is supposedly much better than Cruncher, but surprisingly, even being a bit ahead, Idra lost the final engagement.
I think the ground army to support here is just too devastating, not to mention we've got the Colossus as well, and it looks like Cruncher could just move right in for an attack. Here come Corruptors from all angles, while the ground army tries to do their best versus those Stalkers. Stalkers will blink forward, and I feel like the Protoss is still winning this with the Colossus. More Corruptors are coming out, and I think that the Protoss is going to walk away with the victory here after this battle.
And absolutely nothing remains for Idra. He has 71 Zerglings out on the field. Just held that Z button throughout the entire attack. Corruptors getting reproduced, but there's the no GG. Idra just leaves the game.
Nevertheless, he quickly tied up the series in the next game, showing a beautiful draw play with Hydras. Cruncher was actually aware of this strategy and knew Idra would do it again, as he had already shown this build order in GSL, but still Cruncher messed up his timing and lost as a result. It was the time for the last game.
Do see that he still has pretty high energy on those Nexi, but this really is an aggressive push by Cruncher. He's going to have to do a lot of damage at this point. We do see that there's the Roach speed getting researched. That hallucinated Phoenix does manage to spot it. Idra is beginning to spread the creep out and is going to have to go into non-stop production mode. We do see those Zerglings at the front get taken out. More units from Cruncher.
He's not even going to get a cycle in here, so he could do some serious damage on those sentries. He's going to move in, perfect little surround there with the Zerglings, and look at all those trapped roaches.
That is an incredible force field. Look at that, 5 roaches packed tight together, getting absolutely mauled by these Stalkers and Sentries. More units getting warped in on the low ground. Idra has 11 roaches en route, but this army from Cruncher is so big, and Cruncher actually down on the food count, but the timing of this is just so remarkable. There's the Guardian Shield drones popping into the fray. We see that extra swell of roaches coming down the ramp right now. More Guardian Shields, more units getting warped in by Cruncher. He seems to be all out of force field, but it doesn't matter. He is all pumped up on 6 warp gates worth of units. Couple more units pop in, and Cruncher with the happy face. Is Idra's energy still broken? It seems it is. See you later, Idra, getting knocked out. The curse.
And this was an incredible upset. Later, Cruncher also roasted Idra in his interview, saying that he would be just a mediocre player hadn't he trained for 24 hours per day. This was actually somewhat disrespectful. I think he even crossed the lines actually, and that's probably the reason why Idra hated him so much afterwards. The next time they met was during the American Team League, where Idra managed to win against Cruncher, and he also wrote "You can leave now" while finishing the last pieces of his army. We don't have any saved videos, but I bet it was hilarious. Finally, they met once again at MLG Anaheim, where Idra had his infamous interview and no handshake moment.
What do you think about Cruncher, and how do you think this match is going to go?
I'm playing really bad, but it's more than enough to beat him.
The last time Cruncher and Idra saw each other was at North American Star League, where Idra once again won the series and successfully defended Canadians' cheeses. Greg Fields later claimed that Cruncher would soon fall off the scene, as he was just an abusive player who enjoyed the imbalance between Zerg and Protoss races. Whether this was the case or not, Cruncher indeed soon retired from StarCraft 2, as he stopped showing any prominent results at all. Idra won this rivalry with a total 3-1 score in the series. The next notorious rival was Zenio, a successful Korean Zerg player. The rivalry ignited when Zenio showed the chopping motion with his hand after his victory, but there isn't much known about why they were hostile to each other, but it's speculated that they had a lot of flaming on the Korean ladder. Zenio also enjoyed a lot of ceremonies. One of the funniest moments was during North American Star League, when Zenio won the first game and then asked for the GG, while Idra replied with "earn it." Zenio then elaborated in the post-match interview that he doesn't really hate Idra, he just needs to change his attitude to the game. They never met again, and the score was 3-0 in the series in favor of the Korean Zerg player. Now we got to one of the funniest rivalries. It was against the Bostos, better known as MC. It was a great and accomplished Korean player who won several GSL codes and was even considered the best Protoss player in 2011. Their first match was during DreamHack Stockholm, where Idra lost quickly with a 2-0 score. Then they met again at MLG Columbus, and suddenly Idra managed to take a 2-0 revenge over MC.
Maximum health, but there's the push again. The Immortals get caught off guard. He blinks up. He tries to pick off the these guys, the Infestors, but in the meantime, there's still a huge amount of units from OGS MC. We're seeing units burrowing underneath all of those force fields. MC trying to use blink control, trying to use those Immortals to get in a good position. The Immortals get taken out. Idra sprinting forward. An insane, aggressive game, but Idra appears to be coming up on top, and there's the good game.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
The first 2 games at MLG Columbus.
The Immortals, they were sitting right there. They were just asking to be neuroparasited. They were just asking Idra, like, please take me over so I could kill all of my own stalkers.
Gotta make sure to get neuroparasite really, really quickly against Immortal-based builds. When you steal the Immortals, it's just really good, because the Immortals, obviously, they're Protoss units, so they kill stuff really fast. It's good to have them on your side.
However, the Korean player stated that he was simply jet-lagged and he would beat Idra easily in the next series.
And if I'm in the normal condition, I would never lose to Idra. And so if I play him right now, I could easily beat him.
Idra, do you have any words for your opponent, MC? 2-0.
2-0 is your dream. 4-0 you said. Oh.
And indeed, unlike Idra, they met soon in the tournament in the playoffs bracket. According to the rules, Idra started with a 2-0 advantage and needed to win only 2 games, while MC had to win 4. The series was a complete blast.
Position. Oh no! It looked. Oh! OGS MC saying, "Are you angry?" Why would I be angry? Oh, a remarkable level of cool. Zerg isn't supposed to beat Protoss.
Later they would meet many times, and except for that one series, Idra always lost games against MC. But it was no shame, since MC was indeed one, if not the best player in 2011 and 2012. And even though it seemed like their onstage behavior was a part of a bigger rivalry, both Idra and MC described each other as a nice guy. Greg Fields, of course, didn't like his ceremonies, but stated it was still enjoyable to play against MC, perhaps because the Bostos wasn't doing as much dirty stuff as Crunch, for example. And we are close to our finishing line in the greatest, most awkward and controversial rivalry we had with Idra. It happened to be with Huck, who was also an up-and-coming talent at the days of Idra's full prime. While Idra was already an established player, Huck was only slowly gaining fame and also criticism for his all-in and cheese playstyle. As we already learned, Idra hated such things. First encounter was during MLG Washington in 2010, where Idra just brutally dispatched Huck twice in the series. It wasn't something unexpected or interesting, but later they had a pretty funny conversation. Huck dropped to the lower bracket after losing to Idra, where he faced Select, a Korean term player. He tried to execute a unique build order that involved a Mothership Rush, a very expensive Protoss unit that gives stealth to all the army around it.
He is moving back. And good force fields there, a bunch of units getting trapped. That's good. He took out a bunch of units, and the Mama ship is doing some really nasty stuff. And there we go. No, he sucked his own units in. And why is he doing this? What the hell is Huck thinking here? And his units are cloaked, and
eventually Huck lost the game, and many people considered it to be a throw, as the strategy wasn't really good and probably would never work anyways. And Idra in his manner described his decision to be retarded and that Huck was just doing fun service with his games. And of course the rivalry got a lot spicier. They soon met again during an Evil Geniuses Invitational tournament, and once again Idra dominated the series with 3-1 score. And then Huck took the decision to move to Korea to train there and get better at SC2. It was also the same time when Idra started his streaming sessions. They both encountered each other many times, and most of their games were salty and involved many cheeses. The viewers did enjoy their banters though. Finally, Huck got his moment to take his revenge on Idra. It was during MLG Dallas 2011, where they first met at the group stage. The first game wasn't really that interesting, but the second became one of the most well-known memes of the StarCraft 2 community. Let's get into details. This was a large map called Metallopolis, and Huck once again tried to be cheeky and aggressive, but it wasn't really successful as Idra repelled the attack, which led to him gaining a good advantage. But Idra wasn't keen on finishing early, and he kept on playing a standard macro game, opting to go for the late game where he felt more confident. However, despite his expectations, Huck showed some great battle skills.
Infestors all alone. Oh my gosh. We do see the Banelings coming out. We get some fungals. The
No
Banelings are gonna drop
neuroparasites
by.
at all. The carpet bomb does some huge damage, but all the Colossi are alive and well. Idra misclicked severely in that attack.
And depending on what he actually takes away, oh my gosh, here come the Broodlords, the blink underneath them, and this could be bad. Banelings will come in, do a lot of damage to those front stalkers, but the Brood numbers are
Oh my goodness, it looks like Huck just using his superior stalker count to just pop right underneath those Broodlords. He's just going to take all of that damage right in the face. The Banelings, the fungal growths, he's letting those Zerglings rip apart his main because he has crushed Idra's main army and has some hallucinated Colossi out as well.
But when the dust settled, Idra was still leading. He had more bases, some minerals and gas in the bank too. Huck was desperately trying to secure at least one fresh base, and Idra marched across to finish the game with one big attack. He didn't have an Overlord though in his army, so the hallucinated Void Rays seemed very natural.
Now out on the field, and it looks like there's some Zerglings doing a counterattack in the main. The Void Rays, all hallucinations, doing absolutely no damage whatsoever. There's the blink up onto the high ground, just trying to distract Idra. Those hallucinated Void Rays almost fully charged, Wheat. And Idra left the game? Oh my goodness, Idra.
This was one of the most iconic StarCraft 2 moments, thanks to the next game where Huck also showed some curiosity. It must be said that Idra probably would have won the game if not for that rage quit, and Huck eventually won the series with 2-1 score. However, later in this tournament, Idra just crushed him in the playoffs bracket and even dissed him in the final interview once again.
Oh, I expected him to all in because he couldn't beat me in a real game.
So Huck can't win in a real game, huh?
Pretty much. You wouldn't win at all if you didn't play Protoss. He's actually not Protoss.
Despite popular belief that Idra was a loser in this rivalry, it was actually all the way around. In fact, Idra was winning most of their encounters and even this front map wasn't a big deal, except for the great memes of course. Finally, Huck was able to break the curse and defeated Idra at Home Story Cup, and of course many people anticipated some high tones and insults, but it didn't happen. It turned out that by that time both Idra and Huck were kinda neutral or sometimes even friendly towards each other, and the rivalry was also ended by Team Evil Geniuses that picked up Huck to their roster, thus uniting both players under one team tag. This is not a hallucination, it was the exact slogan they used for such a big announcement. Overall, the score with Huck is even, 4 series for each player, and their rivalry ended on a positive note. We've also come to the conclusion of this video. Write your opinion on these fun encounters and who would you root for and who was the best opponent for Idra. If you enjoyed the video, consider checking out some more SC2 related content on my channel. Have a good time, good luck and have fun!